The former world darts champion Ted Hankey has been jailed for 2 years for a sexual assault caught on camera.
He walked on stage in a black cape, dead silent, eyes locked on the target like a villain in a final act. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or hold their breath. And then, bang, a perfect double. That was Ted Hankey, a world champion with the swagger of a showman and the fuse of a firework. But behind the icy stare and smooth throw was a man unraveling. One outburst, one scandal, one dark secret at a time. He didn't just play the bad guy, he became one. This is the rise, the chaos, and the ultimate collapse of dart's most controversial figure. Before the scandals, the cape, or the camera glare, Ted Hankey was just a player with a dart in his hand and ice in his veins. No gimmicks, no drama, just precision. In 2000 at the BDO World Championship in Lakeside, he didn't just win, he dominated. Match after match, he tore through the field with mechanical focus, averaging over 97 and hitting 22 maximum 180s, a record at the time. It wasn't flashy, it was ruthless. In the final, he faced Ronnie Baxter, a seasoned pro. But Hankey didn't blink, not once. He didn't just beat Baxter, he obliterated him, sweeping the match 6-0 without dropping a single set. Then came the final blow, a 170 checkout, the highest possible finish in darts. Treble 20, treble 20 bullseye. Game over, title sealed, history made. And the way he did it? Cold, unshaken. No fist pumps, no roars, no wild celebrations, just a quiet nod, like he expected nothing less. At that moment, Ted Hankey wasn't a showman or a villain. He was a technician, a sniper in full control. Darts purists loved it. He made winning look effortless. And just like that, his name was etched into the sport's elite. But while the throw stayed steady, the man behind it wouldn't. Because what came next was nothing like Lakeside. After his first world title, something shifted. Ted Hankey wasn't just walking to the Aki anymore, he was making an entrance. Draped in a black Dracula-style cape, face stone cold, he'd march toward the board like a villain entering a gladiator pit. No waves, no smiles, just stillness. His nickname, the Count, wasn't just branding, it was a transformation. And at first, it worked. Crowds loved the spectacle. Hankey brought something darts hadn't seen in years, drama. While others fed off cheers, he ignored them. While players high-fived fans, he stared them down. Even after landing massive checkouts, he stayed emotionless, and it felt like theater, and he was the lead. Off stage, the persona held firm. He corrected reporters in interviews, dismissed rivalries as beneath him, and claimed darts was losing its soul. Ironically, he said this while dressed like a gothic executioner. And when asked about pressure or competition, his answer was always the same: they all fall the same. At first, people were hooked. He was different. He made the stage feel alive. But soon, that ice-cold confidence began to curdle into something else. Because when the applause started to fade, the anger started to leak through. And the Count? He wasn't acting anymore. By the late 2000s, the mask was cracking. The calm had turned to contempt. At the International Darts League, cameras caught Hankey muttering insults, quiet but sharp, aimed at the crowd. Not frustration with himself, but real hostility directed outward. He'd miss a shot, turn to the side, and sneer something under his breath. People noticed. The tension was no longer part of the show, it was real. Then came the blow-ups. At the 2008 World Championship in the middle of a semifinal, Hankey suddenly stopped mid-leg, turned to the crowd, and shouted, "Shut up!" He hit the double anyway, classic Hankey, but spun around and screamed again, eyes blazing. It wasn't a character, it was a meltdown. From there, the list of complaints became a joke. First it was the lights, too bright, then the venue, too loud. The carpet, too thick. The darts, bent, nothing was ever right. In one match, he accused an opponent of fake coughing to throw him off. Another time, after losing, he kicked over a sponsor's banner and stormed off without shaking hands. Even when he won, the celebration felt sour. The magic was fading. The crowd still showed up, but now it wasn't to cheer. It was to see what he'd blow up about this time. Hankey wasn't just unpredictable, he was combustible. And the scary part? This wasn't the worst of it, not even close. Nearly a decade after his first world title, Ted Hankey climbed back to the top. In 2009, he returned to the BDO World Championship final, this time against fan favorite Tony O'Shea. The match wasn't easy. It was tight, tense, and unpredictable. The kind of pressure that cracks most players. But not Hankey, not yet. Wearing the cape, standing calm as ever, he edged out a 7-6 win, one of the closest finals in recent memory. And for a brief moment, it felt like a return to form. The focus was back. The crowd, split and roaring. The count, once again on top. It could have been the start of a comeback story, but instead, it was the final spark before everything fell apart. Because something had changed, not just in Hankey, but in the sport itself. Darts was evolving. The players were younger, faster, more disciplined. The game was moving toward professionalism. Hankey, meanwhile, was still fighting ghosts, crowd noise, tournament setups, lighting conditions. He called the new generation soulless, said the sport was losing its edge, but in reality, it was just leaving him behind. He had the cape, he had the name, but he no longer had the game. In 2012, Ted Hankey made a move that surprised everyone. He left the BDO and joined the PDC, the sport's faster, more competitive league. It was seen as a challenge, a reset, maybe even a rebirth. But it wasn't. It was a collapse. At the Grand Slam of Darts, he delivered one of the worst televised performances of his career, averaging just 64-8. For comparison, most elite players average 90+. Fans sat stunned. Commentators didn't even know what to say. The drama was gone. What replaced it was confusion, even pity. Then the truth came out. Hankey had suffered a mild stroke prior to the event. It had affected his eyesight and ability to focus. He was also managing type 2 diabetes, which left him drained and foggy. Physically, he wasn't the same. Mentally, the pressure only grew. He tried to keep going, entering smaller events, hoping for another run, but the spark was gone. The cape didn't intimidate anymore. The tantrums didn't shock. The crowd wasn't hostile, they were indifferent. The villain had lost his power. And worse, he didn't know it. But as the darts faded, something darker was waiting off stage. And when it hit, there was no recovery, no rehab, no redemption, just ruin. For years, Ted Hankey walked the edge, erratic, unpredictable, and often his own worst enemy. But in 2022, the line wasn't just crossed, it was obliterated. News broke.
World darts champion Ted Hankey has been jailed for 2 years for a sexual assault caught on camera. Jailing him, Judge Stephen Everett said Hankey would have, quote,
Ted Hankey had been charged with sexually assaulting a teenage girl in the town of Crewe. The incident had been caught on CCTV. There was no debate, no misinterpretation, just footage. Clear, damning, inescapable. At first, Hankey denied everything. But once police presented the evidence, he stopped cooperating. In court, he pleaded guilty. The judge didn't mince words, calling it a disgraceful act, and said Hankey would have denied it to the bitter end had the footage not existed. The victim's statement revealed the emotional wreckage, panic attacks, fear of going out, long-lasting trauma. Hankey was sentenced to 2 years in prison, placed on the sex offenders register for a decade, and banned from contacting the victim. The fallout was immediate. Sponsors vanished. Tournaments cut ties. Fellow players, even those who once defended his eccentricities, said nothing. There was no support, no controversy, just disgust. He wasn't a misunderstood showman anymore. He was a convicted criminal. The story didn't just spiral. It crashed into the ground and left a crater behind. And just like that, the noise was gone. The cape was gone. The count was gone. Ted Hankey's career once held echoes of greatness. 2 world titles, record-setting performances, a presence on stage that no one else dared to copy. But legacy isn't built on trophies, it's built on memory. And when it comes to Hankey, the memories are no longer kind. Some will say he was misunderstood, that he cracked under pressure, that his struggles with health, fame, and mental exhaustion spiraled out of control. But even that argument dissolves when confronted with the reality of his crime. The tantrums, the excuses, the paranoia, it all felt like build-up to something. And when the final chapter arrived, it wasn't about darts. It was about damage, to a victim, to his own family, to a career that once held promise. His wife left him. His children cut ties. The sport that once made room for his madness shut the door for good. There was no ban, no formal exile, because it wasn't needed. Darts simply moved on. And the silence that followed wasn't sad. It was deserved. Ted Hankey didn't just walk into darts, he stormed in. A world champion with a sniper's aim and a supervillain's swagger. For a while it worked. The cape, the stare, the ice-cold precision, it made him unforgettable. But legacy isn't about how you enter. It's about how you leave. He could have been remembered as one of the most naturally gifted players of his era. Instead, he became a cautionary tale. His downfall wasn't a sudden drop. It was a slow, visible unraveling. And when the final scandal hit, there was no sympathy left, just silence. The sport didn't chase him out. The crowd didn't boo him off stage. They just stopped looking. The man who once demanded attention ended up with none. Not because of a losing streak, but because of something darker, a failure of character. Some still wonder, was Ted Hankey a misunderstood genius? A product of pressure and pain? Or was the darkness always part of his throw, just waiting to be exposed? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you want more stories from the edge of sport, the legends, the villains, and the ones who lost it all, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and we'll see you in the next one.